Xandra McMahon, and this is How We Met, a Queer Love Archive. Hey, good news. You're in store for some laughter and joy with this episode, so buckle up. If this is the first episode you've turned on, welcome. This is How We Met, a Queer Love Archive, a place where queer couples share stories of how they met, how they fell in love. And today we have a couple from New York City. I'm really excited about today's episode because, surprisingly, this is the first story of a couple meeting on a dating app, which I feel like that is such a staple in today's modern dating culture. So I'm happy that Evan and Sam get to be our dating app representation today. They have a really, really fun dynamic with each other. I loved listening to them when we recorded. I had even more fun listening and editing this and putting this all together. So I'm keeping it real short and sweet today. Without further ado, here's Evan and Sam in One Last Swipe.
I loved you as a human before we started dating. Being with you makes me better.
Hello, I'm Evan, pronouns he, they, and I'm from San Francisco originally. I've lived here in New York for 7 years. And I was raised by my grandmother, who was a really big influence on me. I'm very close with her to this day, and she really inspired, this love of movie stars and amazing movies and good music, and Barbra Streisand, who stands, alone from all of that. You can't really group her in with anyone. So I moved to New York, which seemed very apropos for school, and I studied English literature, primarily 17th century women's poetry, and I just recently finished my graduate degree at Columbia in the same. And I'm also a drag artist and a drag enthusiast. My drag name is Zelda Garment from the House of Swan Song in New York City. My drag mother, Gloria Swan Song, who helped me with everything. Have to do a little shout out.
And I'm Sam. My pronouns are he, him. I am originally from Rhode Island, and I have my BFA in musical theater, which was a great use of my time and money. And now I am performer, composer, lyricist. I have a musical called Give 'Em What They Want. And I am also doing real estate in New York, and that is mainly my career nowadays. And on the side, I sing jazz for the old folks at their senior living communities.
We've been together since July of 2023. So almost 2 years, a year and a half. But it feels like 10 years and also like 10 days at the same time.
We met the old-fashioned way online on one of the nicer apps, I would say, on Hinge. And the way that I found him, so I had just graduated and I was feeling very alone and sad, and I went to dinner and
Alone.
Alone, yes. Thank you for hammering down on that. Yes, I went to dinner alone, and the good news is I found one of my favorite burgers I've ever had. The bad news is I cried in it, into my burger, and I had called my sister, and I was like, I'm a mess, I hate this, I'm all alone in the city. And I was living alone at the time in Tudor City, in a studio that was very, very small. And so I had decided that night when I was eating and crying alone that I would no longer do the online stuff, the dating apps. I was done. I was going to put it away. And so I said, okay, when I go home tonight, I'm going to get into bed. I'm going to put on a show. I'm going to take out my phone, go on to Hinge, and just, say hi to the first person I see, and then that'll be the last person I see. And the first person that came up was Evan here. And I was completely enamored with your profile. Because, Hinge gives you little prompts, right? And so it was like, describe your perfect night. And Evan's profile said, curling up in a cozy blanket, listening to Nancy Wilson and watching Murder, She Wrote.
My end of that, I was laying in bed, and I just had this on my phone. I really never used it. I couldn't care less, honestly. I was for once not doom scrolling, and I was just trying to fall asleep. I think it was like midnight, and I'm like rolled over in bed, and I hear my buzz, and I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck is that? What could this be? So I roll over and I pick up my phone, and I'm like, oh, this is nice, so I messaged him immediately, not really thinking that I could come across as being desperate. And then all of a sudden it was 3 a.m. and we've been chatting about how we both love Nancy Wilson and Blossom Dearie and Murder, She Wrote. And poor Sam worked at 5:30 in the morning.
I did, yes. At the time I was at Starbucks, doing a horrible job at Starbucks.
Yes. So before we went to bed, we planned to meet the next day, which I never do. Normally I talk myself out of things and wait a week, and then I just let it fizzle and not do anything. So I'm glad
Absolutely.
Struck while the iron was hot. He worked in the morning, as I mentioned, and so we were going to meet after work. And of course, my first thought in the morning was, well, I should probably go get a manicure before I go meet this person. So I went to, I don't know why I remember this. I went to get my nails done, and something weird happened under the drying lamp, and the color got fucked up, and so they had to redo it. So I was late, and I was like, oh my God, I'm late. And I didn't tell him I was getting a manicure. So I was like, my errands took longer than expected.
You had told me, because I remember.
Oh, did I?
I made a point to look at your nails when we... And
they were sky blue.
They were sky blue, I remember.
Yeah, so I arrived. He lived at the time in a little neighborhood called Tudor City, which was very exciting to me because it's a very charming neighborhood. And I live all the way, up in hell in Washington Heights, where we live now. And, I went up to the 4th floor and knocked on the door, and I'll never forget when he opened the door for the first time.
I knew he was nervous because you said, hi, how are you, about 9 times.
I wanted to make sure he was doing it.
Yeah.
I was doing a temperature check. I just wanted to
It was very cute.
We had a nice little brunch, and then we went on a walk on the High Line. Yeah, and then we went back to his apartment, and we watched TV, and all of a sudden it was 9 o'clock, And I worked the next day, and I was so humble, I have to go, really, I should be going. And he didn't want me to go, but I thought he was just being polite, because why would he want me to stay the night or anything? So I left, and by the time I got to the end of the block leaving his house, I messaged him because I just missed him already.
Usually I was the nervous one for dates I've had, and I usually dreaded going on first dates, and this one I was so not nervous about. It was one I told my mom about, which didn't happen very often, and said I was so excited, and she was like, oh God, well, you have to be careful. You need to make sure that, you know this is a real person. I don't want him showing up to your door if he's not real, you know. And I said, yes.
I'm 84 years old. Really.
Yeah, we both really are 80-year-old women. Like,
I clock in at a really comfortable 73.
a cool 73.
Yeah.
But my mom was very nervous, but also she was like, but I hope it goes well. I hope he's, maybe he's the one, who knows.
Things did pick up quickly in the sense that we spent a lot of time together. This is, like a month in, I would say. So down at the end of Christopher Street, where it meets the Hudson there, it's where the piers are. There's this charming little outdoor restaurant that's open in the summer, and they have a bar, and everyone else is being like normal, sitting at the bar and having a cocktail. And I go and meet Sam, and he's like, this place has the best coconut ice cream. Over the coconut ice cream, he asked me to be his boyfriend, and I was very excited.
It was less than a month.
Because it was about a month.
Okay.
But I was very excited because, 3 dates in, he had told me over a, subpar Caesar salad, he told me that I really like you, but I think we're very similar, which we've now learned we're very different, but similar in the right ways.
In all the good ways.
But, we're really similar. Maybe we're not like a romantic match, but I want to be your friend with benefits or whatever. So I was very pleased because, of course, that's I was like, oh, fine, that's annoying. I don't want to deal with all that. So when he asked me, I was very excited, and, it was a lovely moment. And then the next morning we went and walked and got bagels, and then sat in the little park outside of his house, to which he promptly said, actually, I spoke too soon. Let's not be boyfriends yet. So he was really yo-yoing me around.
I knew I wanted love. Well, okay, so I think the reason I was nervous to have you in my life as a labeled boyfriend, I think labels are scary sometimes, and I have never had a boyfriend. I wasn't even really, out, really, to, obviously, no one's guessing that I'm straight, but I think I had told my parents I was bi, was where I left it. And so, I don't know, it was just, my family is so extremely supportive. They're wonderful, wonderful people. So, I wasn't scared. I just don't love talking about my personal life with my family that much.
I remember we went to Dave and Buster's the night
yes.
after you first told me that we were going to be boyfriends. And it's a huge staple in our relationship. If you don't know, on Wednesdays they do half-price games.
Which, when I told my mom we were going, I said it's half-price game night. And she goes, oh my gosh, that's so nice that they do that. And then she called me back and she goes, I'm sorry. Did you say it was half-priced game night? I said, yes. And she goes, I thought you had said half-price gay night.
How could they tell? They could tell, but
Oh my gosh.
So it was our first time doing anything after, putting a label on ourselves. And so I don't know, I was excited, and I probably called him my boyfriend 3 times, and clearly I laid it on too thick, and he ran away.
What did you say?
That's how I remember.
My boyfriend will have the pretzel dogs. Sam's mustard,
Sam's mustard? What, do you not love yourself?
Nah.
God. 2 days later, he promptly told me that we were boyfriends.
I did. He was getting ready.
And then it stuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you were getting ready, right, for the first drag show that I went to.
Yes.
And I had texted you. Oh, and by the way, you're my boyfriend now for real. No backsies.
He came to the show. I remember being able to hear him in the audience, before the show started, talking or whatever. And I was like, oh, Sam's here. And of course he sits in the very front row, which is rule number 1. Do not do it in a drag show.
I had never been to a drag show.
That's
never again.
Splash zone. You're going to get hit with something. I don't know what, but... And then at the end of the show, of course, he met everyone. It was lovely. And, and backstage, Gloria had said, is that Sam in the front row? That's so adorable, whatever. And he hands me a card, bat mitzvah card, congratulations on becoming a woman, right? And on the envelope, in big block letters, he's written Evan. And he's handing this to Zelda Garment. Who the fuck is Evan? What the hell? I mean, just like, using my muggle name in front of everyone. I mean, what in the world?
I was so nervous, and I was like, "Oh, I'll sit front row. That seems supportive." and it wasn't. I mean,
he was trying to see up my skirt. I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
5 layers of tights.
Yeah,
padding.
that under that tweed.
I was wearing velvet.
Oh yeah,
Thank
it
you.
was velvet. But I was so worried because I knew your friends were probably going to be there. And I was like, oh God, I really don't want to, I don't want to do something wrong or say something wrong. And it was awkward for me, but we got along very well. Like there were no problems.
I came up to him after the show and they were already mingling.
Yeah.
My friends and he. And he had already told them that we were now boyfriends.
Oh yeah.
So he ripped the Band-Aid off, which I think was nice.
Yeah, I definitely did. And I think that one of the very many nice things about being with Evan is, I have-ish friends like that I, have from college, but we don't really talk anymore. I mean, they're fine people and, they're very nice, but we don't do anything together much anymore other than like the occasional, like, how you doing? What's going on? But with Evan, everything that was in your life became mine. And it was so nice. Like all your friends became who are now like my absolute best friends in the whole world. I love them to pieces. I think they love me.
They do. As a Taurus, I've clearly curated a very, very tight-knit, small group of friends.
It is a very good group. And yeah.
I'll also say, maybe I'm speaking for you, but going back to, when you first came to the show, you were probably relieved to know that I wasn't like terrible at it.
Yes.
Because there's nothing worse. There's nothing worse than having a partner that has an artistic endeavor that they suck at.
Yeah.
Because you have to tell them they're good. And I've had that before. And when you told me that, like, you write music and you sing, I was like, oh God, please be good. And he is good. And so it's really like a huge weight off your back. And honest, I don't know what it is, but it just makes everything so much easier.
It does. Yeah. There's no pussyfooting around.
Right. Okay, Grandpa. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I, am very emotional. So like about 2 seconds after it's acceptable to say that you are in love is probably when I admitted to myself that I was in love.
Yeah.
And then I was just like waiting. I was like,
you didn't want to say it first.
No, God, no, because I'm that type of person that it would be too soon.
Yeah.
So I was waiting.
Which I usually am like that too. Like I've never said that to anyone, but like with you, like I could tell that you loved me and I knew that I loved you. And so this was probably, how far were we in? Like a month and a half?
I would say it was like a good 6 weeks or 2 months after we were boyfriends.
But yeah, we were sitting at a restaurant near my apartment, and I was so blind to the world that was not Evan. Like I was so in your eyes, and I was just lost and was loving the moment. And so I had said I love you. You said you love me too, and then we had our moment, and then we just started laughing really hard because when I said I loved you, the music that was playing was some heavy metal,
hardcore rock,
which was so not that restaurant.
It was like someone hit the wrong button on Spotify. It was one step short of Screamo.
It really was
truly really intense.
It was crazy,
and I wish I knew what the song was because I could
be
joke
our
that
wedding.
it was our song. But I don't listen to a lot of heavy metal, if you can imagine. So I probably won't figure the song out anytime soon.
I don't think we will. night or like the afternoon before I had my first solo show at 54 Below, consisting of some songs from my full musical that I wrote and some songs that I have that might be in some other musicals I'm going to write. And I got you were still in Wisconsin and you were coming that night. Like you were gonna get off the plane and go to 54 Below. And so my doorman had buzzed up to me and was like, "You have a very lovely surprise in the lobby." And I was like, what could that be? And so I came down and it was the most beautiful bouquet of flowers that were, saying break a leg and it was so pretty. And I remember it said a blossom for my blossom because we love Blossom Dearie and they were flowers. So I think that but it was so sweet. And I put it on my windowsill and I was getting ready to go to the show and I got to the show and I did my dress rehearsal and went upstairs and I was a nervous wreck for the show. I'd never I've done small solo shows, but I've never done something like, an off-Broadway New York solo show. And I was very, very nervous. And I just remember thinking like, oh my God, 99.99% of the audience is family and friends and they're gonna meet Evan, and which I'm sure it was like your show, probably how you felt about me meeting everyone. Mm-hmm. But I was backstage and when they announced my name, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna throw up. Like this isn't good. And I didn't, but I really thought I was. And then the show went really well, and after the show, I noticed you were sitting right behind my mom and dad. And so I knew they had met, and I was like, oh, I hope that went well. Because the day after the show, Evan and I went with my parents in a 4-hour car ride back to Rhode Island. But yeah, it was just like, that was a really, really good moment where I was like, oh, this is getting real. This is serious.
I love his parents.
They are wonderful. Best. They're wonderful people.
He puts up with my mother.
I do.
The few days before the show, I had a trip planned to Spring Green, Wisconsin, if you can imagine, and which is about an hour outside of Madison and has a population of -4. And my drag mom, Gloria Swansong, is a costume designer by day and has a yearly residency there with the Shakespeare Festival. Anyway, so we were going with our drag sister, Maxie Factor. And so we were there for 3 days, and the whole time I was missing Sam, but having a great time, of course. The day we were coming back, we were stuck in Charleston, potentially, because of weather. And I was like, Maxie, we are going to have to rent a car. Neither of us have licenses. I don't know how we were going to rent a car, but I was determined. We were going to have to rent a car and drive overnight to get to 54 Below in time, because I cannot miss this show. I don't even know how to explain how chaotic of an experience that would have been if we drove 9 hours in the same car.
In a storm?
It would have been like Thelma and Louise. It would have been Tu Wong Fu. It would have been every crazy, road trip movie you've heard of. But alas, the flight took off and we got there in time. But yeah, I made it in time.
You did.
I walked up to 54 Below and I saw Sam's parents getting out of the car and walking into 54 Below. And I was so anxious, and I was like, hit against the wall like I was in a spy movie, so they wouldn't see me.
I'm a street lamp.
I didn't want to meet them on the street. I was like, I have to meet them inside. So I waited for them to get down the stairs, whatever. But then, of course, after waiting 2 minutes, I go to open the door, and 54 Below opens up to a staircase, and they're still on the landing in the middle of the stairs because his mom, Charlene, has been looking in the mirror fixing her hair for approximately 2 minutes. And she turned up and she said, oh my God. Oh, that's Evan. Steve, that's Evan. Steve, that's Evan. Oh my God, it's Evan.
My mom's going to be like, I don't talk like that. I don't sound like that.
She sounds like that.
when you had come to Rhode Island for the first time. This is kind of how I knew, like, my parents really approved of you, especially my mom. So my parents, they watch Jeopardy every night, and Evan's really good at Jeopardy. I'm notoriously horrible at Jeopardy. I'll be like, Greece, and they'll be like, actually, it's Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
But the category was Name That Balkan Nation. And so this is like how I realized my mom and Evan are very similar people with very similar humor. So someone was like, I'll take Name That Balkan Nation for 500. And Evan and my mom at the same exact time go, Name That Balkan Nation, white boy. Which is such an obscure,
It just
like, I don't know
just-
how you got there.
Sonically, it scratched something in my brain, and I had to say it.
And it did to my mom,
I had
too.
to say it,
Yeah.
and we were just on the same wavelength. And that's just Charlene and I.
Yeah.
That's how we are.
Yes. And now we've realized that we are Charlene and Steve.
It scares me.
Yeah, we really are my parents.
We became boyfriends in July, and Sam's lease in his tiny studio expired in February. So it was kind of quick, like, not quite a year, Not as fast as, like, a lesbian couple would move in together. Like, I didn't have the U-Haul waiting outside after the first date, but pretty fast. It was like, we thought about it, we were like, but if you sign your lease, like, we don't want to wait a whole year. Like, that's too long. And, like, why would you pay all that money?
And I
For
had
this
been
silly
staying
studio?
over at
And he
your
stayed
place.
over all the time. So it just seemed right. At the time I lived with my drag mother. So he moved into my room, and that was lovely. And then my lease on that apartment expired in October, and we moved into our current apartment, which was only 5 blocks from where we were living
Yeah.
then. And in the same week, we got our apartment moved. I got a new job that I had been on the job market for 8 months, and we got a dog.
Yeah.
All in one.
And
week.
I had just started at a new company, too.
It was
like, just
insane.
before
It was
that.
insanity. Like, I would have preferred that it happened, like, with a little bit of breathing room as it went, but rip the Band-Aid off. And
It did.
And we've been here for 3 months now, and it's like,
It feels so
Blissful
much
life.
like
It's
our
amazing.
home that
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like we've only been here 3 months. I feel like
Yeah.
we've been here like a year, but it's really nice that it feels like that and it's only been 3 months because I don't like when time moves too quickly.
yeah.
Evan, I really do think that, like, from the moment I met you, even if I didn't know it then, I certainly know now that you're the person I'm gonna marry, and I love you so, so much, and you've made all my dreams come true, and you're just opening me up to a whole new world that I've never seen before, even on my day-to-day. And you found me, as Miss Garland would say, you found me just in time.
The first day that you open the door, in Tudor City, it's how it feels every day. It's like when Judy Garland opens the door and she steps out into color, into Munchkin Land.
Oh,
And it's just like, you've exploded my worldview in the best way. And it's like every day there's something beautiful and new because of you, and because of us. So thanks for making my life in Technicolor.
right back at you, kid.
It actually wasn't Judy Garland. It was a stunt double, by the way. I just would
That-
like to put that on the record.
that is true.
It was a very nifty shot they did.
Thank Thank you so much, Evan and Sam, for sharing your love story with this podcast. How We Met, A Queer Love Archive is produced by me, Xandra McMahon. The How We Met theme is composed by Addison Ryder. Other music in this episode is from the Epidemic Sound Library. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you're listening right now. You can follow the show on Instagram at How We Met Pod and see cute cartoons of all the couples drawn by Emily Giroux. How We Met, A Queer Love Archive will be back in 2 weeks with more queer love. Talk to you then.